Before the creation of the internet, people would watch movies, talk about them with their friends, and move on with their lives. Nowadays, the World Wide Web has opened up a platform for everyone to discuss their favorite flicks and toss around theories until the cows come home. And you bet that we've curated a list of our 20 favorite Disney theories that aren't totally bonkers and actually hold some weight. Join us as we, hopefully, blow your minds clean off. Finding Dory is a veritable delight. Who doesn't love a classic tale about a regal blue tank trying to track down her parents while struggling with short-term memory loss? If you're anything like us, your eyes were fully brimming with tears pretty much throughout the entire movie, which means you might not have seen an important Easter egg. When Dory finds herself trapped inside the aquarium, there are a group of school children smashing their faces up against the glass. If you look closely, you'll notice that one of these little rugrats looks an awful lot like the protagonist Riley from Inside Out. Disney even confirmed our theory with a video. What do two sisters who live in a frozen wasteland and a man who only wears loincloths have in common? Turns out a whole lot more than you think. In an interview with MTV, Frozen director James Buck confirmed that Tarzan, Anna, and Elsa are actually siblings. He explains that the girls' parents were on their way to a wedding across the sea, but their ship crashed and they washed up on an exotic island. After surviving, they picked up their socks, had a new baby, built a sick treehouse, and ended up getting eaten by a leopard. Some people just aren't built for adventure. Adding to that theory, we think that the Little Mermaid also fits into this story. Remember when she's sleuthing around a ship trying to find things to add to her collection of human trash? We believe this is the shipwreck from the boat the King and Queen of Arendelle were on. We know that Frozen is set in Norway, and that the Little Mermaid is set in Denmark, so it makes sense that their ship would have crashed near their homeland. We're just happy that she doesn't find a couple skeletons to add to her assemblage of thingamabobs. Another familial link that we would like to argue is that Ariel and Hercules are related. We even dusted off our books of Greek mythology to solve this one. As we know, Hercules is the son of the almighty lightning slinger Zeus. If you take a look at the Greek family tree, you'll notice that Zeus's brother is Poseidon, and Poseidon's son is Triton, aka the king of underwater CrossFit. This means that Hercules and Ariel are actually first cousins, once removed. Seems like fiery redheads run in the family. Aladdin is set in an ambiguous time period. While upon first glance, the movie seems like it takes place in the past because of the dated garb. Everyone is also making pop culture references. When the genie starts impersonating Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jack Nicholson, we know for sure he's a modern man. But here's the rub. When he's released from the lamp, the genie says he's been trapped for 10,000 years, meaning the film must take place 10,000 years after the Terminator came out.
I'll be back.
Meaning it can't be set in the past. So if all of this is true, that means humankind can look forward to a future where there are flying carpets. Sweet. In Beauty and the Beast, we learn that a prince is turned into a beast because an enchantress believes there was no love in his heart. While we think that she deduced this because he didn't let her into his home while the weather was horrible out, we believe there may be more to it than that. Fans have argued that the enchantress was in love with the beast, and instead of blocking him on Instagram or writing a strongly worded letter, she decided to go ahead and just curse him. Definitely an effective and underused method. Everyone in The Incredibles looks like they could have walked right out of Mad Men, but with a cape. Wait.
Knock it!
The mix of 60s style and new technology makes for a world that is recognizable, but full of juxtapositions. We believe that this world is existing in an alternate universe in which humans have created new technologies at a faster rate. Don't believe us? The movie's producer, John Walker, confirmed that this was director Brad Bird's vision. It allows the movie to feature a retro style while still delivering some pretty super technology. Have you ever wondered why all of the vehicles and cars have different accents? Sure, it could be a classic case of a machine-based melting pot, but in an interview with creative director Jay Ward, he explained that there is a reason. Ward says that each car absorbed the accent from their last owner, essentially mimicking them until the end of time. In the same interview, he claims that the cars got rid of all humans. So not only does it help explain the plethora of different accents, but also helps prove Cars is set in a far future where human life has been obliterated.
What? This place is crazy!
Remember in WALL-E how he finds a little plant amongst the heap of human trash? We think it looks an awful lot like the tree that sustains life for the colony of ants in A Bug's Life. In both films, humans are no longer living on Earth. In A Bug's Life, we see remnants of human life when Flick goes to the Big Bug City, yet we don't see the people themselves. This could be Earth beginning to rebuild itself after the help from our favorite robot, WALL-E. Sorry, C-3PO, you didn't save planet Earth. In Tarzan, there is a scene in which Turk plays the drums on a tea set that we've seen before. Look familiar? How about when singing Tale as Old as Time? It is without a doubt Mrs. Potts and Chip, who somehow made a trip across the sea and ended up very far from home. But how? Our theory is that Jane is a descendant of Belle from Beauty and the Beast. We believe that Jane kept this family heirloom safe and somehow didn't further Chip on her travels. He must have been wrapped up pretty good for the long boat voyage. This theory suggests that Inside Out exists in the same universe as Monsters, Inc. Fans have suggested that Bing Bong was appointed to be Riley's monster, just like Sully was matched with Boo. The only difference is Inside Out is set in the future, where monsters are harvesting laughter instead of screams. This means that instead of Bing Bong disappearing as she grows up, he actually moves on to make another kid laugh. It definitely beats the original story where he sacrifices himself to live in a pit of lost memories. There is so much crossover between Robin Hood and Zootopia, it's hard to know where to begin. First off, both worlds are totally absent of humans. Secondly, there is a class difference between predators and prey. In Robin Hood, a lion is royalty, and in Zootopia, a lion is the mayor. Finally, in both films, the animals walk on their hind legs. A little word for that is anthropomorphism, if you're feeling fancy. It's not a stretch to say that Robin Hood is a medieval version of Zootopia. While years have passed, in Zootopia, the power dynamics between animals are still at play. If you compare the genie and the merchant characters in Aladdin, you'll notice a whole lot of similarities. They both have similar beards, wear blue, and oh yeah, they're both voiced by Robin Williams. The theory that the merchant is actually the genie in disguise was proved to be true when Disney released this deleted scene. In this unused ending, we see the merchant literally turning into the genie before our eyes. So the case is closed on this one. If you've seen The Emperor's New Groove, you know that humans are turned into animals by seemingly easy magic. There is a scene where Cusco is split up from his unlikely sidekick Pacha, and finds himself in a scary jungle. He comes across a fly who is stuck in a web and verbally cries out, "Careful!" Because this insect has the ability to speak, we can only assume that he was once a human, and what we're seeing here is somebody being eaten alive. Too dark? Nah. Remember how the evil queen from Snow White was jet set on ruining the young girl's life? We believe her penchant for tormenting young women didn't end there. We think that instead of dying like she should have in Snow White, the ruthless villain lived on to become Mother Gothel entangled. We have 3 reasons why we think this is true. Number 1, Mother Gothel's dagger looks an awful lot like the one the evil queen gave the huntsman. Number 2, both characters are obsessed with beauty and remaining youthful. And number 3, they look the same. What do you want from us? There is a theory that Heihei is actually a demigod rooster who was sent by the gods to help Moana. Think Mushu from Mulan, but not faking it. We believe this holds weight because at the beginning of the movie, when Moana is a baby, Heihei is there, but not as a chick, but a full rooster. Throughout the course of the movie, he doesn't seem to age. In addition, he also seems to survive various life-threatening situations and seems to be incredibly resilient. Although he doesn't come across as the most clever of poultry, he is definitely helpful. Clever theorists have put forth the idea that the entire film Aladdin is simply the fulfillment of his first wish to be made a prince. By dressing Aladdin up, throwing him up on top of an elephant, and making it appear to the good people of Agrabah that he could be the hottest new sultan this place has ever seen, the genie is creating a scenario in which Aladdin appears to be royalty. From that point on, everything that happens is to make sure Aladdin becomes a prince in the end. Aladdin must overthrow Jafar so that the sultan can stay in power and allow him to marry Princess Jasmine. At the end of the movie, his wish is granted, and the genie's work is complete. Man, wishes really aren't that easy. There appears to be a significant cameo in Frozen during the first time in forever scene, and Disney fans are having a heyday. You can see by this screenshot, Rapunzel is in attendance and is visiting Arendelle for Elsa's coronation. Because the 3 girls look very similar and possess magical powers, we believe that they could be related, and maybe even cousins. It's possible that when King Agnar and Queen Iduna went abroad on the ship, they were heading to Rapunzel's wedding. As we know, that's one event that they should have probably skipped. One thing that is never discussed in Frozen is how Elsa got her powers. According to the first draft of the movie, the wacky little leader of the Stone Trolls was supposed to explain how Elsa got them due to a specific alignment between Earth and Saturn. Apparently, she was born on a specific day and time that imbued her with the ability to make an ice palace for herself and write the catchiest song of 2013. Well, now we know. Our final theory is about where Jessie came from in Toy Story. As we know, she was abandoned by her previous owner, which left her incredibly traumatized. When we take a closer look at her memories, we can see an image of Jessie lying on a bed that looks like it's from the 70s, and next to her is a cowboy hat. We see Andy wearing this same exact cowboy hat when he's playing with Woody. Coincidence? Fans have suggested that it was Andy's mom who was the original owner of Jessie, and therefore will never be forgiven and will forever be known as the toy abandoner.
Since the creation of Reddit, fans have had the opportunity to discuss their own personal theories on films to no end with total reckless abandon. While some of them are totally outlandish, there are actually some that hold weight. We've curated a list of our 25 favorite Pixar theories that we believe might actually be true. Join us as we sift through the best of the best. Okay, let's start off with a big one. There's a theory that every single Pixar movie is interconnected. A conspiracy theorist named John Negroni wrote a book that explains that the timeline begins with Brave. There, animals begin to take on human characteristics when the queen turns into a bear. Over the course of time, animals interbreed and are able to speak. But then, surprise, surprise, humans take advantage of that ability and learn to harness their power like Charles Manson up. By the time we see Finding Nemo, animal intelligence has grown significantly. Things take a turn in Cars when mankind has destroyed the planet so much that it is uninhabitable for them. And thanks to WALL-E, life on Earth begins again. In A Bug's Life, the ant Flick is a free-thinking keener who just wants to help out his colony. When one of his inventions backfires and ruins the harvest, he becomes a social pariah and is exiled. He is determined to right his wrong, and so decides to befriend some bigger bugs to stand up to the grasshoppers who each year take from him and his community. He believes that his new recruits will be the perfect candidates for a bug uprising. At first glance, you may not question this plot. Theorists, however, believe that the story is a metaphor for colonialism and speaks to the historical struggle of the oppressed. The grasshoppers represent the colonizers coming in and taking resources and exercising their military power on the minorities, the ants. Pixar's Up is truly one of the most devastating movies we've ever seen. It should come with a warning before that opening montage because that first couple minutes of the movie are straight up scarring. For those of you who have seen it, you'll know that at the beginning of the film we see a sweet couple of kids meet, grow old together, and then the woman tragically dies and leaves her husband heartbroken. A theory suggests that after Ellie passed, Carl died shortly after of a broken heart, and what the movie is his adventure in the afterlife. We hope that if this is actually true, it means he will be reunited with his sweetie and that they'll be able to spend eternity together. In Finding Nemo, there's a theory that suggests that Nemo could be a figment of Marlin's imagination. After Marlin lost his wife and his children, he entered into a period of such intense distress that he went into denial about the whole thing and fabricated the idea of one of his sons surviving to cope with the loss. What we know to be a beautiful father-son tale could actually be one big metaphor for Marlin going through the stages of grief. When Nemo gets captured by the fishing boat, he experiences anger and will stop at nothing to get him back. The last step, acceptance, happens at the end of the film when Marlin is finally able to let Nemo have independence. In Toy Story 2, we meet the character Wheezy, a pitiful little penguin who was shelved due to his broken squeaker. When Woody discovers Wheezy gathering dust, he's lodged in between two books, embarrassed at his predicament. He tells Woody his woeful tale, that he tried to yell for help but no one could hear him, and then alerts the toys about the upcoming yard sale. One theory about this little sad sap is that he is secretly a villain. Fans suggest that after logging multiple hours alone on the shelf, he became jealous of Woody and the gang and used the yard sale as a way to get the other toys sold. With Woody out of the picture, Andy might give him more attention. If you recall, at the end of Monsters, Inc., Sully totally ghosts Boo and she's left questioning why her new blue friend has disappeared. A theory suggests that after this heartbreak, Boo decides to learn how to time travel so she can track down her pal. Because she's logged some hours in Monstropolis, Boo knows that the secret to jumping from place to place lies in the magical hanging doors. While traveling through time and space, Boo finally lands in the world of Brave, where she meets Merida. Because we can see a carving that looks very much like Sully in one of the scenes, we believe Boo is the witch and has spent all this time looking to reunite with her old friend. Another Monsters, Inc. theory is that Bing Bong from Inside Out was actually a monster who worked with Sully and Mike. At Monsters Incorporated, monsters are hired to be what is known as a scarer and are assigned multiple kids to haunt at night. Doors are activated and used as portals to their bedrooms so they can visit places all over the world. By the end of the Monsters, Inc. movie, Sully and Mike discover that kids aren't dangerous and toxic as they were taught, but rather wonderful and kind. More importantly, they discover that children's laughter is actually stronger than their screams. Fans believe Bing Bong was sent to Riley to collect her laughter energy, but Riley believed he was just an imaginary friend. In Toy Story 2, we meet Jessie, the fast-talking, feisty cowgirl doll who immediately won our hearts. Fans have reason to believe that Andy's mom was her previous owner. In the films, Andy is seen wearing a cowboy hat that matches Jessie's. Also, in Jessie's origin story, we see an image of her lying on a bed beside the very hat Andy wears. Coincidence? We think not. We also think that Emily gets her son to play with vintage toys from the Roundup gang because she's nostalgic for her past. We lost our minds when Jessie was dumped in a donation bin, and now we know who's behind the heartbreak. So it all adds up that Andy's mom is the true Toy Story villain. Case closed. In Cars, upon hearing Owen Wilson's voice and watching action-packed races, you were probably having too much fun to contemplate its deeper meaning. But one teeny tiny detail that zooms past the average viewer is that there are no humans in this world. Given that these cars are clearly man-made, we can deduce that at some point humans were present to wipe down those windows and pump those tires. Fans have two theories that explains the eerie absence. One is that the cars decided humans no longer served them, so they turned against mankind and ran them all over, creating a particularly gruesome amount of roadkill. And the other very feasible explanation is that humankind was wiped out by their own pollution. Let's all make sure to be environmentally conscious so this theory doesn't turn into reality. There's a theory that suggests Andy's parents are going through a divorce in Toy Story. While we now know that Andy's mom is a toy abandoner, we don't know much about his dad. We never see him around, and he's not present in any family photos. We're thinking either she's always been a single mom and made the decision to have the kids on her own, or she took the photos down because she had a falling out with Andy's dad. If we look at the story, we can see that she's moving houses. This could be because the divorce was recent and she wants a new space for herself and her new life. On top of all that, she's never seen wearing a wedding ring. If you've seen Ratatouille, you'll remember that at the end of the film, the very snobby and very French food critic is moved by Remy's dish. He gives it a sensational review and admits it reminds him of his mother's cooking. Fans decided to investigate more about this critic's past and discovered something incredible. In the first scene of the movie, Remy and his family are forced out of an old woman's house. In her kitchen, we see various objects like a teapot, some jars, and stove handles. These exact same objects are in Ego's memories when he has a flashback at the end of the film. So that means that the old woman at the start of the movie is actually Ego's mother. That's why Remy can cook the dish so perfectly. Mind blown. One interesting Reddit theory suggests that Frozen and Brave are linked. It says that the city of Arendelle was on the opposing side of the war that united the clans in Brave. They point out that Arendelle was originally built as a military fort during the war and suggest that both the Duke of Weselton and Elsa's father fought in it. If they were fighting at the same time, that would mean Elsa and Merida are around the same age and that they're living parallel lives. Some more evidence that they have is that when the Duke discovers Elsa's powers, he's not shocked but rather afraid, as if he's seen this before. Perhaps because he's encountered the sorceress in Brave. This next theory is a bit of a downer. While the first theory we looked at suggested that there was hope for planet Earth, this one says that there is absolutely no chance for humankind to survive. In WALL-E, we get a glimpse into the 99th century, where environmental neglect has caused the Earth to be uninhabitable and humans have been evacuated. In this garbage-strewn wasteland, we meet Wally, a waste allocation load lifter whose job it is to clean up the mess. While the film was made famous for criticizing human environmental impact and consumerism, fans suggest that it was actually Wally himself that ended the Earth. They say that Wally actually dismantles the cleaning units, and with them out of commission, the Earth goes to ruin. To counter that, there's a way less heavy theory about Wally that will cheer you up. Remember in the film when he finds a little plant amongst the heap of human trash? Expert theorists have suggested that the very plant he finds ends up growing into the tree that sustains life for the colony of ants in a bug's life. This again ties back to the original theory we discussed that all Pixar films are related. At this point in the Pixar timeline, humans are no longer living on Earth. In Wall-E, they have left the planet, and this could be during the time where Earth has begun to rebuild itself and is finally harboring life again. Let's all agree that Randall Boggs from Monsters, Inc. is the scariest Pixar character out there. Though in Monsters, Inc. we meet him as an evil character who wants to capture children for the screams, in Monster University we get more of a backstory. Sporting sweet purple glasses, we meet a young Randall who is all freckles and timidness as a teen. It wasn't until he felt left out by Mike and Sully that he took a turn for the worse. After that, theorists believe that when Randall started working at Monsters, Inc., he was given Andy from Toy Story to scare. During the scene where Randall is practicing scare tactics, we can see proof of this as he's casting himself on the bedroom wall to look like Andy's wallpaper. We're not done with Monsters, Inc. quite yet. This theory will be looking at Randall's direct competition, James P. Sullivan, or as we know him, Sully. Sully is a gigantic blue and purple monster with a bewitching pair of periwinkle eyes. Though he looks soft to the touch, don't let it fool you. He has horns on his head, sharpened claws, and when he roars it can shake the ceiling. He's pretty much solely responsible for generating power for many neighborhoods in the city of Monstropolis. While in the films we see him excelling at life, there is a theory that it doesn't end so well for him. In the Pixar short Partysaurus Rex, there's a toilet seat cover that has the exact pattern of his skin. Chilling. Our next theory ties into the initial theory that we covered that says all Pixar films are connected. Apparently, the monsters from Monsters, Inc. evolved from primitive man. Once upon a time, humans and monsters lived in harmony, and no two monsters looked the same. They were unique, with everything from scales to fur, and they came in all colors of the rainbow. In the special features on the Monsters, Inc. DVD, it explains that monsters and men once lived side by side, but monsters were eventually driven away. They hid at an enchanted island where magical fruit gave them physical characteristics of the animals that ate them. Having evolved into unsightly creatures, they decided to head back to the humans and use scare tactics to feel superior. One particularly fun theory that we found states that Edna from The Incredibles was once a villain. For one, she seems pretty captivated by all things that have to do with danger and is mysteriously well versed with weapons, lest we forget the flamethrowers. When we take a look at her character, right off the bat she's intimidating. Even her house is frightening and strangely well guarded. What sealed the deal for us was how the theorist explained that Edna thinks like a villain. When she made the suit for Jack Jack, she knew he would be a target and could predict that he would need protection. An interview with Jay Ward, the creative director of Cars, gave us a little insight into where these beings came from and what secrets lie under the hood. Before being interviewed, fans concocted the theory that the characters in Cars have human parts, which sounds incredibly far-fetched. But when Ward was asked why the cars have doors, he replied, "You'll never see the doors open because the brains and the eyes are in there and we don't want anything falling out of the side." That quite literally is what nightmares are made of. And while we're happy we got to the bottom of this theory, we're mad we now have to live a life with that image forever burnt into our brains. You might notice that many details in Pixar films are familiar and yet somehow off. Take The Incredibles, for instance. Some of the garb looks familiar, but it's a mix of 60s style with new age inventions. We believe that this world is existing in an alternate universe in which humans have created new technologies at a faster rate. But we have to go farther back than that. In The Good Dinosaur, we witness an asteroid about to hit our precious home. But in the movie, it misses Earth entirely and the dinosaurs are able to keep evolving. Because of this, the world as we know it has changed and allows for new species to grow and come to be. When watching Inside Out, we left the theaters with our hearts a little fuller, and yes, let's be honest, tear-streaked faces. But there is one theory that suggests that the film is a little darker than we gave it credit for. Recall the moment when Riley goes into her mom's purse and is looking for her credit card. When you look closely, something doesn't add up. Riley's mother's name is Jill Anderson, but the card reads K. Ann Anderson, a totally different name. The film alludes to the family's financial issues when they moved to San Francisco. Could the move be because of their credit card fraud? We'll leave it to you to discuss in the comments. In the Pixar universe, memories are a very powerful way for characters to transport to different dimensions and explore deeper facets of themselves. In Inside Out, we see Riley's memories change and adapt with age, and she looks back on a previous chapter of her life. They take on new meaning, and she conjures up the memory of her playing hockey with her dad. While once associating it with joy, she now looks at it with sadness. In Coco, memories are the only thing that keep a spirit attached to the world of the living. If someone remembers a person that has passed, that person can return on the Day of the Dead. Coco learns what family means and is able to understand the power of memory, connecting the film to Inside Out in deeper ways than we could have ever imagined. In Pixar movies, we see that human emotions are integral to all storylines. Whether it's dealing with loss in Up or jealousy between Woody and Buzz in Toy Story, each film makes us question our humanity and empathize with the characters on screen. But more often than not, Pixar unpacks human emotion in a myriad of ways, suggesting that it is more powerful than even Mr. Incredible himself. In Inside Out, emotions are personified, and we get a closer look into the mind of a young girl named Riley and see what she's dealing with on a day-to-day basis. We see how her human emotions affect her interpersonal relationships and understand how her own energy is affected by them. So yeah, the theory is Pixar is our personal therapist, and the theory is proven to be true for many of us. One of the big life lessons in the world of The Incredibles is simple: no capes. Fashion icon Edna Mode explains the dangers of wearing a cape, and we get to see a particularly humorous montage of supers who meet their end because of this poor fashion choice. Among these supers is Stratagale, who gets sucked into the turbine on a jumbo jet. Later in the movie, we see that Stratagale was a high school student when her record flashes on screen. Theorists say that Edna was so devastated by this death that she could not forgive herself. It was only until Syndrome came to her for a costume that she was able to redeem herself. She made Syndrome an outfit with a cape, knowing that it would be his downfall. Last but certainly not least, we have the theory that the Pizza Planet truck from Toy Story connects multiple Pixar movies. It made its shining debut in Toy Story, and since then has been a favorite cameo in every Pixar movie since. In A Bug's Life, the truck was spotted outside the RV that is central in Bug City. In the movie Cars, the truck comes to life and is given a face. In the movie, the truck can be seen watching races. While those are the more obvious examples, in many films the truck zooms by or is caught in traffic in the background. Next time you see a Pixar movie, we encourage you to keep your eyes peeled and wonder, how does this truck traverse through all these movies like some sort of interdimensional time machine?
As a child, watching Nick shows seemed great on the surface, but as we grow up, we see there may have been a lot more to the show than we realize. See some of the craziest Nickelodeon theories involving hit shows like The Rugrats, iCarly, SpongeBob SquarePants, and Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius. You may never look at these Nick shows the same again. Before you watch, click subscribe. You'll join our notification squad and be the first to know of new Screen Rant content.
The last thing she wrote in it was a poem for you.
On Rugrats, it took years before Chucky's real mom was finally revealed in a Mother's Day special. She died when Chucky was barely a newborn, but one theory states that she may not have been his mom in the first place. The theory proposes that Dee Dee Pickles is Chucky's actual mom. They have similar looks, Chucky's dad gets along great with Dee Dee, and Chucky spends an awful lot of time hanging out at the Pickles household. Maybe Stu shouldn't have spent so much time in the basement tinkering with his toys. Tommy and Chucky's friendship could grow even stronger if the two knew they were related.
Helmet.
For a preschool show like Blue's Clues, there sure are a lot of theories about the content, characters, and plot. No, we're not talking about the birth of Paprika, but rather Steve's role on the show. He constantly talks to a group of kids, sings songs, and plays silly games. One theory states Steve's house is actually a daycare, and each episode is him simply taking care of the children. This explains why Steve acts the way he does, and how he doesn't figure out Blue's Clues so much faster. Obviously, the gig didn't pay enough, as Joe came in and took over after a few seasons.
Oh, that must be our 4 o'clock massages.
The live-action format of Drake and Josh was loved by fans and led to many questions. In the opening of each episode, the characters talk to the camera and basically narrate their feelings. Many fans have come to the conclusion that Drake and Josh is a reality show set in the Nick universe. Many other characters on Nick shows like iCarly and Victorious have watched Drake and Josh episodes within their worlds. And some of the same characters have also appeared in those shows, making them exist in the world. The reality show offers a real-life perspective of mixed families and the journey two young teens must go through. SpongeBob SquarePants is filled with all kinds of theories and mixed messages. But do they involve the 7 deadly sins? Many fans have assigned a deadly sin to each character on the show. Naturally, Mr. Krabs represents greed.
You got money, right?
Patrick represents sloth, and Sandy represents pride. This leaves wrath for Squidward.
Let me guess, Tiny, a small salad.
Lust for SpongeBob, gluttony for Gary, and envy for Plankton.
Better cough up that secret formula or else!
Whether the creators intended this or not, each role fits the character perfectly and often ends up being some of their biggest flaws while going on adventures.
See his baby pictures. Here's baby Freddy in the bathtub.
One of the biggest mysteries iCarly never answered was who the father of Freddie Benson actually was. A bizarre fan theory points out his father may be none other than a bee, Barry Benson to be exact. The animated bee played the starring role in Bee Movie, and he finds a connection with a human woman who looks eerily similar to Mrs. Benson. The theory became so popular that actor Nathan Kress tweeted about it and jokingly confirmed the theory was true. SpongeBob's formula for success hasn't changed much over the years, but his maturity has sure gone downhill. Fans mark the release of the SpongeBob SquarePants movie and 5th season premiere as 2 points where SpongeBob's actions shifted into a more childish tone. The theory? SpongeBob died and was reborn. The moment happened on the big screen when SpongeBob dries out on the beachside souvenir shop. The reborn SpongeBob is naturally more immature as he learns to grow and accept his new identity.
Oh, hey, Al. Sorry, I can't talk. I'm late for school.
The classic Nicktoon Doug follows the perspective of Doug Funny as his family moves to a new town, and Doug must navigate his complicated social life. Many fans point out Doug's blatant racism through the views of his mind. Anyone on the show with different skin colors are viewed by Doug with really wild skin tones, including Skeeter's light blue. While Doug tries to pass it off as an innocent imagination, fans believe he is naively racist based on his upbringing in the years before the show began.
Sorry, my lad. I didn't mean to scare you.
The core of Are You Afraid of the Dark revolved around the Midnight Society, a group of teens who told tales of terror each night. But where did these kids come from? They rarely talked about their personal lives outside of the group, and one theory states that they're all actually dead and ghosts themselves. The Midnight Society is actually a state of limbo. The characters who left the group have finally crossed over to the other side.
Or you could just ask my magic pyramid for all the answers.
Ned's declassified school survival guide could also be a guide to the Illuminati if one fan theory is true. In the episode Failing, Ned uses a magical pyramid to solve all the answers on a quiz he takes. The pyramid features the all-seeing eye on one side, and the side always faces towards the camera. Fans theorize the episode is clearly promoting the power of the Illuminati. Unfortunately, a teacher smashes the pyramid in the episode, leaving a lot of unanswered questions.
Take a deep breath and be myself.
Butch Hartman is known for creating Nicktoons like The Fairly OddParents and Danny Phantom. Not only are the animation styles the same between both shows, but the characters are eerily similar and have led to many fan theories. One of these theories is that Danny Phantom is a grown-up version of Timmy Turner. After using the power of the fairies, Timmy goes under the assumed name of Danny and has the ability to connect to both the real world and ghost dimension. The similar looks, hairstyles, and actions of the characters really help connect the two shows.
My name's Amanda, and everyone here tonight gets a free cell phone.
On The Amanda Show, Amanda Bynes was constantly stalked by a crazed lookalike with the name Penelope. While Penelope was an alter ego played by Bynes as well, many fans believe she was real, kidnapped Amanda Bynes, and assumed her identity in the real world. The theory explains some of Bynes' bizarre actions in real life. And obviously, Penelope could not act as well as Bynes, giving us a good reason for her lack of film roles in the past several years.
4 heaping pounds of freshly ground plankton?
SpongeBob's biggest mystery still remains after so many years. What is inside a Krabby Patty? Well, according to several theories, the ingredient is actually crab itself. That's right, Mr. Krabs kills his own kind to make profits and craft the most delicious patty sandwich. The theory stems from the name of the restaurant. There's Burger King, Taco Bell, and Dairy Queen, all with food in the title. It would make sense that the Krusty Krab would actually include crab on the menu. You're welcome, Plankton. Rocko's Modern Life was a trip to watch, with some crazy plots and wacky animation. The show didn't have much direction, and anything could really happen in an episode. Many fans have determined Rocko's Modern Life creators actually set out to make the most perverted cartoon in history. There's the restaurant Chokey's Chicken, Rocko's random job as an adult phone line operator, and some crazy jokes involving cow udders. For some reason, many children's show theories involve the characters and drug use. One of them is Steve from Blue's Clues. Steve's drug problems led to the character seeing all types of things around his home. Talking furniture, talking food, and a singing mailbox were just some of the objects who came to life to talk to the drug-induced Steve. Then there's the times when Steve would jump into paintings as if they were real-life locations. By the time Joe came around, Steve was off to rehab, not college.
And delivered a plague unto our houses! He did?
Bikini Bottom is a strange place. Fish talk, some of them have weird mutations, and there's a Texan squirrel who decided to spend her life researching underwater. How did it all occur? Well, one theory places the blame on nuclear radiation. Many of the buildings are said to be shells of nuclear bombs, and the bombs have mutated the fish and other sea creatures to form the characters we know and love. How else would you explain a clarinet-loving octopus?
Cock-a-doodle-doo! The cow says boo!
Connecting shows is a great way to build theories, and one far-reaching theory helps connect the world of iCarly to Drake and Josh. On Drake and Josh, the character Crazy Steve worked at the local movie theater. He was played by Jeremy Trainor, the same actor who played Spencer on iCarly. The theory states that Crazy Steve and Spencer are the same character. Steve kidnapped Drake and Josh's younger sister Megan, took her to Seattle, and brainwashed her to think she was actually named Carly and living in an apartment with her brother. Process the theory for a minute. It actually makes a lot of sense.
Mr. Dink is really upset.
When Doug moved to Bluffington, he met a number of new characters, including the eccentric Mr. Dink. But was there more to Mr. Dink than meets the eye? He was always popping up in random locations, took Doug to his secret shed, and his only friends seemed to be children. Mr. Dink may have been a child predator who covered his tracks using various inventions and gadgets. Doug covered up any memories of Mr. Dink's dirty deeds using his active imagination and daydreams.
Searched Shakespeare, Scottish Kings, and downloaded the Keanu Reeves Advanced Acting course.
Jimmy Neutron was a certified genius with the ability to invent robots, explore space, and create all kinds of useful inventions. Yet everyone in Retroville mostly ignored his special abilities or shrugged them off as child's play. A theory related to the town of Retroville involves a large government cover-up. Jimmy Neutron lives in a Truman Show type of situation involving the government tracking Jimmy's every move and using his inventions to their advantage. By making Jimmy feel like he's living a normal childhood, he continues to grow and invent new things.
Keep your eyes off my stoop, old man!
One of the biggest questions involving the classic Nicktoon Hey Arnold is the presence of Stoop Kid. Why was he so dedicated to his stoop? According to one theory, Stoop Kid was forced to stay on the stoop because the building he sat at was actually home to a huge drug operation. Stoop Kid had to stay on his stoop to prevent anyone from going into the building and kept an eye out for any possible police activity or suspicious people. We imagine Stoop Kid got into major trouble when Arnold finally got him off the stoop.
And things kind of went
kablooey.
If you ever thought it was two brothers who were named Pete, well then we have a theory for you. On the adventures of Pete and Pete, one theory states that the younger Pete is not even real. He's the manifestation of the older Pete. The younger Pete is more daring and does things the older Pete wishes he did when he was younger. By living vicariously through the younger brother, Pete feels more satisfied about the less adventurous life he lives. The next time you watch Pete and Pete, keep this theory in mind and the show will give you a whole new perspective.
You never had chocolate before?
I don't know if I like.
If you haven't watched Nickelodeon in a long time, the next time you tune in, everything may feel a little similar. No, it's not another repeat. One theory states Nick went through a big remake stage to try and relaunch some of their shows that were a little less popular back in the day. For example, the old show Brothers Garcia was remade into Ricky, Dicky, Nicky, and Don. The show Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide was remade into 100 Things to Do Before High School. And then there's the show Marvin, a show very similar to the journey of Alan Strange. The stories and characters in each of the show counterparts are nearly identical to each other.
Time sure flies when you're having fun.
Clarissa Explains It All ended far earlier than it should have. Of course, the show wouldn't have lasted long enough to show Clarissa have children, but a theory quickly spread over the internet connecting Clarissa to the show Ned's Declassified. According to rumors, Ned was actually the child of Sam and Clarissa and even mentioned them by name. Unfortunately, the theory was debunked when the scenes and episodes mentioned in the theory didn't even exist. Fortunately, Sabrina is due to make her big return to TV, and we'll get some real answers about her future. Timmy Turner was living a miserable life before the fairies arrived. He had neglectful parents, a horrible babysitter, and some pretty strict school teachers. According to a popular theory, Timmy never got fairies, but was prescribed multiple antidepressants. Cosmo and Wanda represent both Zoloft and Prozac, giving Timmy hope, happiness, and optimism. When Timmy overuses their magic, he actually overdoses on the pills and has to suffer from some pretty crazy side effects. Yikes. This one was a little depressing.
I'm not crazy!
Danny Phantom's whole premise is pretty crazy, even for a cartoon. He's a superhero who battles ghosts and supernatural creatures across multiple dimensions. But is it all real? A theory about the show states that everything after the pilot actually didn't happen. Danny fell into a coma, and everything that happens with his superhero adventures is actually all just part of his dreamlike coma state. The all-a-dream theories are done for many shows, but this one is more convincing than others.
Doctor, are you sure? Maybe we should get a second opinion.
The world of the Rugrats includes multiple seasons, feature films, and spin-off shows like All Grown Up. With so much content, there are bound to be a ton of theories, and many have spread around over the years. One of the most popular theories involves the existence of the Rugrats altogether. The dark theory states that all of the babies are actually dead, and the only way for Angelica to cope is by imagining the babies are all still alive. The deaths of the babies are pretty sad as well, and involve stillbirths, car accidents, and miscarriages among others. Thankfully, All Grown Up pretty much debunks the theory and showcases how the Rugrats are all alive and well.
I'm the manager of this establishment. Everything's gonna be just fine.
Despite being filled with happy moments, great songs, and funny gags, Disney movies have been known to go some pretty dark places. From illegitimate children and chopping off body parts to multiple dead animals. Check out some of the theories making current and classic Disney movies darker than you ever imagined. Before you watch, click subscribe. You'll join our notification squad and be the first to know of new Screen Rant content.
Born of cold and winter.
Sven's frozen mother. As we saw in Frozen, Sven and Kristoff have a great relationship and bond. They understand each other, share carrots, and were both raised by a family of magical rock trolls. It's just too bad. One origin theory paints their time together a lot darker than it seems. The next time you watch Frozen, take a moment to stop singing along and pay attention to Kristoff's clothes. He is clearly wearing reindeer pelts, a material made of skin like Sven's. As the theory goes, Kristoff is actually wearing the skin of Sven's mother, given to him after she was killed. This is why Sven is so attached to Kristoff. He has the scent of his own mother. Let that sink in for a moment.
Take her to the moon for me, okay?
Bing Bong's monster life. Bing Bong's death is tragic enough as it stands in Inside Out, but there's one theory that adds more sadness. The theory involves a crossover between Inside Out and Monsters, Inc. The imaginary character of Bing Bong was manifested from an actual monster that used to come through Riley's closet door. Clearly, by the goofy nature and outfit, Bing Bong started his monster career when the company relied on laughs rather than screams. Eventually, Bing Bong lost his door connection to Riley, meaning the poor monster lost Riley both in the real world and in the girl's imagination. Time to cue sadness for a double dose of depression.
Boy, you're in a heap of trouble.
The world of Cars. On the surface, the world of Disney and Pixar's Cars offer a glimpse at a fun alternate reality where cars have human-like features and run the country. But what if instead of an alternate reality, the film actually represents our future? According to multiple theories and some inside info at Pixar, the film actually takes place in the future, where human existence has been wiped away. Each car features automated technology and actually adapts into the personality of the last person who owned it or sat inside the vehicle. Using humans' thoughts and memories, the cars live out their own world and adapt everything to fit their four-wheeled lifestyle. Mufasa's revenge. Mufasa's death at the hands of Scar was as dark and dirty as they come in a Disney movie. But if one theory is true, then Mufasa's was even more bitter. As Mufasa's spirit visits Simba, it's clear he is part of the clouds, sky, and is constantly looking over. But can he also control the weather? Almost immediately after his death, the Pride Lands dealt with an epic drought. Animals were killed off or driven away, and his own lion family nearly starved to death. Despite this, Mufasa keeps the drought going, in hopes of seeing his son Simba rise to the occasion and deliver vengeance. Further proof of Mufasa's weather-controlling powers come from when lightning strikes down at the Pride Lands and rain pours down shortly after Simba's victory.
Do you even know what a cybug is?
I can't say that I do, man.
Killing your groom. In Wreck-It Ralph, we get to witness Sergeant Calhoun's dark backstory, where her wedding day is disrupted by a cybug who completely devours her fiancé at the altar. In a quick edit, we see Calhoun pull out a gun and completely obliterate the off-screen bug as she has a look of horror on her face. What Disney didn't show us is Calhoun actually had to shoot and kill some form of her own husband. As shown in other parts of the film, cybugs transform into the people or things they eat. This means the cybug likely had the shape of Calhoun's husband, and she had to deliver some nasty headshots to kill him and the cybug off for good.
Hello, Belle.
Bonjour, Gaston.
Gaston's hunting days. In an effort to save time and money, Disney has reused animation throughout the years and snuck it in many different films. Unfortunately for them, they should have never used shots from Bambi in Beauty and the Beast, so this dark theory wouldn't have formed. The theory here is simple. Gaston killed Bambi's mother. Early in Beauty and the Beast, we see Bambi's mother sipping water from a stream. During Gaston's visit to the local pub, we see his wall of trophies, with numerous deer heads. After his recent return from a hunting trip, it's pretty safe to say Gaston was the hunter from Bambi. Another reason to cheer for Gaston's epic fall and death. An Emperor's New Murder. A quick scene and gag in The Emperor's New Groove has blown up in recent years to a full-fledged theory about a small insect. During a quick transition scene, we see a fly get caught on a spider's web. Just as the giant spider comes to devour the fly screams out for help using clear English. The only other animals in the film who are able to talk are ones who have been transformed from humans. So long before Cusco was turned into a llama, Yzma turned some human into the fly. Our best guess? A former servant who didn't quite live up to her high standards and expectations.
It's actually Maui shapeshifter, demigod of the wind and sea, hero of men.
Moana is a demigod. In Moana, one of her biggest allies throughout the film is the ocean itself. The ocean introduces her to the heart of Te Fiti, guides her along, and even helps save her life. According to a theory on Reddit, the ocean may have even turned her into a demigod. According to Maui, he was turned into a demigod when he was dropped into the ocean as a baby. The same thing happened to Moana when she was sent on her adventure and instantly caught in a typhoon. Her landing on Maui's island was no coincidence. She was being formally introduced to another demigod. Later, she can easily take on the Kakamora and is able to enter the realm of monsters, a location Maui states no mortal has ever been.
Told you she was pretty, Mama, didn't I?
Chip's father. The origins of the curse in Beauty and the Beast raised many questions for fans. How long has the curse lasted? Did it freeze time? And where did Chip come from? Mrs. Potts is clearly too old to be his mother, but the character must have parents. And one theory points directly at the Beast himself. According to the theory, Chip is the illegitimate son of the Beast. But like most of his relationships, the Beast ignored his own son and Mrs. Potts stepped up to raise him. The Beast's bitter attitude may have come from when Chip was dropped off at his doorstep by the actual mother of the young boy. If the shoe fits. One of the most infamous scenes in Cinderella is when the title character loses her glass slipper at the end of the ball she attends. The loss of the slipper creates a huge search among all females in the land. Through a montage, we see characters attempt to try the slipper on, but there is some dark origin material Disney left off screen. In the original Cinderella stories, some of the female characters actually cut off toes and parts of their heels to make the foot fit inside the glass slipper. That would have been a sight to see, as the prince tried to find his true love while dealing with some severed toes.
It's almost Halloween, which means it's the perfect time to talk about The Nightmare Before Christmas. And right after Halloween, everyone's focus is gonna shift to Christmas, which means it's the perfect time to talk about The Nightmare Before Christmas. So today we're gonna do just that and look at some theories about what the real themes of the classic movie are, as well as the backstory of the characters. Here are dark theories about The Nightmare Before Christmas that will ruin your childhood. To be fair, if this actually ruins your childhood though, you had a pretty fragile childhood. Before we jump in, if you're new to Screen Rant, hitting that subscribe button and enabling notifications will let you stay up to date with our future videos. It's not explained exactly what Jack Skellington's origins are or why he's the Pumpkin King. Some fans say that he's just the spirit of Halloween, but some say that he used to be alive and then he used to be a human, which is why he's now a skeleton. That's what we have inside of us. There are a couple of things supporting the theory of him having a past life as a human. For one, there's a line in the game Oogie's Revenge where Jack mentions something about owning a guillotine when he was a boy. There's also a line in his song Jack's Obsession mentioning something he keeps forgetting, like a memory long since passed. So if he was a human at a certain point, that raises the question of how did he die? The main theory going around is that Jack was burned alive. That would explain this weird character entrance where he's on fire and why he doesn't have any skin or flesh. A lot of people seem to think that The Nightmare Before Christmas was directed by Tim Burton. That was actually done by Henry Selick, but Burton did conceive of the film and produce it, so it is his baby. And some people seem to think the movie is actually supposed to parallel his relationship with Disney. Burton used to work as an animator for them in the 80s and has clashed with them several times during the years. His dark and creepy style doesn't exactly fit with the bright, family-friendly Disney. So there's a theory that says that the clashing between Christmas Town and Halloween Town is actually supposed to represent the huge difference in style between the studio and Burton, and basically how they're not a great mix together. And actually, even after the movie came out, the clashes continued. Disney wanted to make a computer-animated sequel which Burton shot down. They also wanted to make a ride out of it at one of their theme parks, but Burton shot that down as well. If you haven't seen our recent video about dark theories about Corpse Bride, this theory goes that that movie is actually a prequel to The Nightmare Before Christmas. This one also assumes that Jack used to be human, so you kinda need to make that leap to believe this one too. Essentially, fans have theorized that when Victor from Corpse Bride eventually died, he ended up becoming Jack Skellington. They both look kinda similar and they both have dogs, and you can see why people thought of this. What's even more is that a few years later when Frankenweenie came out, fans theorized that that was a prequel to Corpse Bride, since the kid's name is also Victor and he has a pet dog. So potential double prequel? Here's another theory circulating about the real meaning of The Nightmare Before Christmas. If you haven't heard of cultural appropriation, it's the adoption of elements of one culture by members of another culture. It can involve using their traditions, food, fashion, symbols, technology, language, and songs, pretty much anything relating to culture. Well, this theory goes that the real message behind The Nightmare Before Christmas is that cultural appropriation is bad. Jack falls in love with Christmastown and everything he sees there, so he tries to bring all that back to Halloween Town. He does this without permission and without any cultural relativism. That's the principle of regarding the elements of a culture from the viewpoint of that culture itself. And when he does that, it goes horribly. So maybe the real moral of the movie is simply don't hijack other people's cultures, you jerk.
Who doesn't love fan theories? They're a perfect way to rationalize plot holes or ponder unanswered questions that movies leave. Dark fan theories based on Disney are some of the most popular. Disney presents itself as so innocent, and that just makes our imaginations run wild and wonder what dark secrets may lie beneath the fun surface that is Disney. Today, we're going to be taking a look at some of our favorites. Hold on now, before we get started, subscribe to our channel. You'll be joining the notification squad and get frequent updates on brand new content. And one more thing, why not take a part in our emoji quiz? Can you guess what film these emojis are showing off? Wait to the end to find out. Oh no. Frozen. Frozen probably has the most long-winded fan theory on this list, so we're gonna give it to you straight. Some Disney fans believe that Tangled and Frozen are pretty tightly linked. Director Jennifer Lee confirmed that when Elsa's parents' ship was capsized, they were heading to a wedding. Seeing as Rapunzel and Eugene are seen arriving at Elsa's coronation and considering they're from Germany, we can only assume that they were specifically invited. This has led fans to believe that Elsa's parents, the king and queen, died whilst on a voyage to Rapunzel's wedding. The theory goes a little further though, as if they'd capsized halfway to Germany from Scandinavia, they would be right around Atlantica, the home of Ariel and King Triton. So it could even be possible that the shipwreck scene of The Little Mermaid could be all that's left of Elsa's parents. While it's certainly far-fetched, seeing as The Little Mermaid was produced long before Frozen was even thought of, retcons do happen. Disney hasn't confirmed whether their animated classics are canon to each other, and they likely never will. This doesn't stop fans from linking the movies together, something we'll talk about more a little bit later.
Princess Jasmine, you're very...
Wonderful, magnificent, glorious, punctual.
Punctual.
Sorry.
Aladdin. A great deal of the genie's dialogue in Aladdin came from ad-libs of the great comedian Robin Williams. Robin's tendency to go off on strange tangents and make strange references informed a lot of the genie's bizarre and seemingly impossible pop culture references. The first line spoken by the genie is iconic. 10,000 years will give you such a crick in the neck. Yet, despite of being locked away for 10,000 years and being awoken in what is seemingly the pre-Crusades Middle East. So how on earth does he know all of these pop culture references? Well, barring the possibility that the genie is simply omniscient, we can only assume that Aladdin takes place 10,000 years in the future. One popular theory is that Agrabah is actually a nation post-apocalypse. It's one of the only ways to explain the genie's frequent pop culture references and the lack of technology. Even if Agrabah simply never caught up with the rest of the world in terms of technology, the movie would still have to take place far in the future for the genie to know all of these references. But then again, the genie is literally magic, so who knows?
I'll just poison him with this. Take it, Kronk. Feel the power.
Oh, I could feel it.
The Emperor's New Groove. What started as a brief, dark joke in The Emperor's New Groove triggered a minor conspiracy theory amongst Disney fans. Kuzco is alone in the jungle and visibly afraid. There are alligators, jaguars, and other wild animals that could potentially eat him. To top it all off, a small fly buzzes past him and gets stuck in a spider's web. He frantically screams for someone to help him before the spider emerges and eats him, saying it's too late. Not only is it a reference to Jeff Goldblum's pleas to help him in the 80s horror film The Fly, but it's also even darker than it first appears. While talking animals in Disney films aren't uncommon, the only other animal to talk in The Emperor's New Groove was the squirrel, who communicated solely in squirrel speak. Animals that were originally humans, like Kuzco, however, retained their ability to speak even after Yzma's mad science transformed them. The theory is that both the fly and spider were originally humans and were transformed into arthropods by Yzma. If that's true, then it means we didn't so much witness the cruelty of nature and more a premeditated murder. While it's not the first murder to happen in a Disney film, it definitely is the most disturbing one to think about.
Come on, Peach.
Now what?
Finding Nemo. Finding Nemo is a movie that's really aimed at parents. While the film is entertaining and fun for kids, the real message isn't about being a good kid, but about being a good father. The movie puts so much time into showing different approaches to fatherhood that the idea that none of the movie ever happened is a little unsettling, which is probably why this fan theory took off. When Marlin loses his wife and all but one of their eggs, we immediately understand why Marlin is so overprotective of Nemo. Some fans theorize, however, that Nemo never survived and the movie is a metaphor for Marlin dealing with his grief after the Barracuda attack, as well as the fact that Nemo literally translates from Latin as nothing, hinting on him being a figment of his imagination. The 5 stages of grief are mapped out in the movie. He goes through denial, trying to stop Nemo going to school, anger at Nemo when he swims too far away. His journey across the ocean can be seen as bargaining to try to get Nemo back, depression upon seeing Nemo flushed away, and finally he accepts to let go of his hard past. While we doubt that this was ever intended by Disney or Pixar, it's interesting how a character defined by his grief goes through the 5 stages on his journey to save his son.
Good news is, I found your hat, Woody.
My hat! Oh, Slick, thank you. Where'd you find it?
Well, that's the bad news.
Toy Story 2. We're not completely sure if this theory is scary or strangely heartwarming. While it's never been outright stated, fans paid attention to Toy Story 2 when it strongly implies that Andy's mother is the original owner of Jessie. We know from the amount of time Jessie has spent abandoned that Jessie is considerably older than Woody, and she has better knowledge of the toy's own franchise history than Woody ever has. We also know that the young girl that abandoned her frequently wore a hat identical to Jessie's. As a matter of fact, the hat is identical to the one that Andy wears in the first Toy Story movie, with the imprint of where the white band once was. It seems a little strange that if Andy had a cowboy hat, that he would have tried to get one as much like Woody's as possible. So why would he have Jessie's hat? The question is never really answered. Fans have guessed, however, that the hat may have been passed down to Andy by his mother. If this theory is true, it means not only was Jessie tragically abandoned by Andy's mom, but she also, against all odds, managed to find her way back home, albeit in a more unconventional way.
You were this close to losing your...
Incredibles. While not outright terrifying, writer Steve Damrell certainly had an uncomfortable thought about The Incredibles. While watching the Pixar movie, he noticed many unusual similarities to the work of Ayn Rand, in particular Atlas Shrugged, the novel that outlined her objectivist philosophy. It's not as apparently horrific, but the idea of a kid's movie having a strong political philosophy backing it is a little scary. Outside of the main visual cue of Mr. Incredible on one knee holding the orb-shaped robot over his shoulders, a symbol uncannily similar to the popular image of Atlas carrying the world, the movie also seems to reinterpret some of the verbiage of Ayn Rand. While there are many parallels, including the heroes being berated with lawsuits despite their good deeds to society, the most apparent is when Dash is denied the opportunity to race with kids in his school. His parents feel that it's unfair because he would excel at it thanks to his superpower. Dash points out that he should be allowed to race because he is special. She responds with, "Everyone is special." Dash is sad and says, "Then no one is." The villain syndrome also echoes this idea. The idea of choosing norms over exceptionalism and the hatred of success are big elements of Rand's philosophy. Alternatively, the movie could be viewed as a criticism of those ideas, not unlike BioShock, but it's still strange that these themes made it into a kid's film either way.
Jeez, it's a lion! Run, Pumbaa, move it! Hey!
The Lion King. Who remembers Mufasa? The lion with the voice so awesome that when the time came to remake the movie, Disney got James Earl Jones to play him all over again. Well, some fans believe that Mufasa not only became a spirit like we saw in the movie, but actively controlled the weather. After Mufasa dies and Scar takes over Pride Rock, it becomes rather apparent that he's a bad leader. After all, he's so bad that he's somehow caused a drought, something that should not be physically possible. However, on Earth, could a lion rule so badly that it never rains? Well, when Mufasa appears to a lonely and dejected Simba, he appears shaped by clouds. Some fans have taken this to mean less that he is one of the many kings watching over Pride Rock, but that he is literally a water god now. After all, as soon as Scar is defeated by Simba, it rains for the first time. Simba climbs to the top of Pride Rock, soaking wet, and roars triumphantly. While the water is intended to symbolize new, good times for Pride Rock, some fans think that it was Mufasa turning the tap on now that Scar is gone. Snow White. Speaking of characters having hidden identities, one of the darkest theories surrounding Snow White is the thought that Prince Charming isn't actually the one to rescue her, but is instead the personification of death. The first time Snow White sees the prince, she runs away in fear of him. I'm sure most of us can attest that that's not a normal reaction to seeing a new person. The Redditor who developed the theory believed that it could be taken as a metaphor representing her nearly drowning in the well, as Snow White was hanging over the well just before the prince appeared. The second time they meet is the famous scene in which Prince Charming kisses Snow White and saves her life, which isn't entirely logical either, unless of course it symbolizes the kiss of death. The prince doesn't sweep her away and take her to a faraway kingdom, he is the embodiment of death, who kisses her, sweeps her away, and takes her to the underworld. After all, he only appears at what would have been Snow White's funeral. It's an idea that can be easily unsettling, but even if this theory were true, it doesn't necessarily mean that Prince Charming is the bad guy in the situation. He could just simply be a nice, angelic metaphor for crossing over with no ill will towards Snow White whatsoever. After all, he's not the one that poisoned her.
And I got friends on the other side.
He's got friends on the other side.
The Princess and the Frog. No Disney villain has quite as much style and sophistication as Dr. Facilier, the Shadow Man. It's easy to explain away the majority of the Shadow Man's strangely specific knowledge in the movie as simply being voodoo magic, but there is another fan theory that was first pitched on DeviantArt by user Scrooge MacDuck. It's possible that Dr. Facilier is actually Tiana's father. After all, he's aware of Tiana's existence and starts causing trouble for her despite seemingly never meeting her before. He not only knows her name, but he also knows her dream to own her own restaurant. While it's possible that it's just an extension of his magic powers and that he reads her the same way he did Prince Naveen, it's also possible that his knowledge comes from a pre-existing relationship. While Tiana believes that her father died at war, it's entirely possible that he made a deal with his friends on the other side to give him a second chance at life. He was brought back, albeit as a very different man. From there, his newfound power corrupted him. It's not a particularly nice thought to think that the father who seemed so loving and caring in flashbacks could become the nefarious Dr. Facilier. We like the idea though. Fantasia and the Disney Universe. Earlier in the video, we talked about how some Disney fans like to think that every Disney movie exists in the same world. While we're not going to say how plausible it is, we're going to add a little to the theory. If the Disney world is indeed a thing, then we can't help but notice that all the bad guys seem to be particularly adept with magic. Where do all these evil villains draw upon their power from? Well, we have an idea. Chernobog, the great demon from Slavic mythology that first appears in the night on Bald Mountain. Walt Disney himself described Chernobog as pure evil, who would fuel the wicked intent of those around him. So could it be that all the other Disney villains gained their magical powers from the great and terrible Chernobog? He could potentially even control the friends on the other side that gave Dr. Facilier his powers. Maybe the only reason Maleficent can take the form of a dragon is thanks to him. In Slavic folklore, Chernobog is the god of all that is bad. If all the Disney movies take place in the same universe and Fantasia is included in that, then it stands to reason that Chernobog would keep that role. He is great, powerful, truly terrifying, and just maybe responsible for every bad thing that happens in the Disney world.
Marvel has developed a reputation for foreshadowing huge revelations many years in advance, so it's no surprise that there's a lot of theories trying to predict what will happen next. Marvel has plans for movies through 2020, so what secrets have been right in front of us? Some of them might just blow your mind. Here are the top 10 Marvel fan theories that will freak you out. But first, hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with all the latest Screen Rant videos. And can you guess what movie these emojis represent? Stay tuned to the end to find out. Heimdall has the final Infinity Stone. The entirety of the Marvel Cinematic Universe so far has been the story of the quest for the 6 Infinity Stones. We've seen 5 that we know of so far: Space, Tesseract; Mind, Loki's Scepter; Reality, Ether; Power, the Orb; and Time, Eye of Agamotto and the Nexus. The big question is, where is the Soul Stone? This theory suggests that Heimdall has had it all along. In the Guardians of the Galaxy vision, the Soul Stone is shown to be orange, the same color as Heimdall's eyes. and the gem on the front of his armor in Thor: The Dark World. Coincidence? Maybe. However, in Thor's vision in Avengers: Age of Ultron, Heimdall's eyes are white. In Thor, Loki suggests that Heimdall has a power no one else has in Asgard. This is why he's in charge of watching over the 9 realms. In Thor: The Dark World, Heimdall tells Thor that he can see into 9 realms and over 10 trillion souls. To top it all off, the location of the Infinity Stone seems to be foreshadowed with the acronym Thanos. Tesseract, Heimdall, Aether, Nexus, Orb, Scepter. We know, our minds were blown too.
Come on, Peg. We got family business to discuss.
Peggy Carter is Tony Stark's real mother. It was clear to everyone watching Captain America: The First Avenger that Peggy Carter and Howard Stark had some kind of intimate relationship before Steve Rogers showed up. Their friendship throughout Agent Carter shows that Howard trusts Peggy more than anyone else, and in the opening scene of Ant-Man, we find that they still work closely with each other well into Howard's marriage. This leaves a lot to the imagination, and the idea of an extramarital affair is definitely on the table. Howard was established as a bit of a womanizer from the very beginning, and in Captain America: Civil War, Steve Rogers even says, "I can't believe Howard got married." Sure, people grow, and Howard might have met the right woman and wanted to settle down eventually, but this could just as easily not be the case. Plus, the theory doesn't rely on Howard's infidelity. Another suggestion is that Maria wasn't able to carry children, so Howard went to his oldest and most trusted friend to act as a surrogate to carry their child for them. This would explain a lot about Tony, like why he looks nothing like his fair-haired mother, and another reason for his deep-seated daddy issues. Loki lost against the Avengers on purpose. Loki is the god of mischief. He's a manipulator, a schemer, a plans within plans kind of guy. So why is everything he does in the Avengers so straightforward and kind of dumb? First, he gets captured when he stands in front of a crowd of people and makes a huge scene. Then he accepts capture and is brought aboard the helicarrier with no fight at all. The Avengers realized that he wanted to get captured to unleash the Hulk, which he only did to bring the Avengers together. Loki made it clear in Thor that he has no interest in Earth. He wants to rule Asgard. So why bother enslaving and manipulating people on Earth in the first place? He uses the scepter to manipulate Selvig into putting a failsafe in the portal device, so the Avengers can close the portal, get the Tesseract, and send it back to Asgard with Thor and Loki in tow. With yet another Infinity Stone in Asgard, plus the gauntlet itself as revealed in Thor, Loki is in the perfect position to take Asgard, and Thanos gets the gauntlet, as we see at the end of Avengers: Age of Ultron, so he can take Earth.
We are
Groot is a godlike immortal. Groot is everyone's favorite character from Guardians of the Galaxy, especially Baby Groot, but his origins have remained uncertain throughout the first 2 films. Back in the opening scene of Captain America: The First Avenger, as the Red Skull is trying to find the Tesseract, he looks at a carving of a tree on the wall and says Yggdrasil, the world tree, guardian of wisdom and fate also. It seems like kind of a random line to throw in for no reason, but even before that, Thor describes Yggdrasil in Thor as the world's tree that connects the 9 realms. Then, in Thor: The Dark World, Heimdall has an imprint of Yggdrasil on his chest plate. In Guardians of the Galaxy, it was established that any small piece of Groot, when preserved, will eventually regenerate into a living Groot, which suggests that he can basically go on living forever. The theory suggests that Groot came from a piece of Yggdrasil planted in the earthly realm to be a guardian. This would explain why no one in Guardians of the Galaxy seems to have ever seen anything like Groot before, and why his stat readout at the Nova Corps says Origin X.
It will be absolutely safe. Yeah.
The Reality Stone will be used to recast characters. One of the biggest questions of the Marvel Cinematic Universe since the beginning has been, how will it continue? Superheroes can continue to fight indefinitely when they're in print, but live action presents much more of a challenge. Not only will the actors continue to age until they're no longer suited for the roles, but typically actors want to focus on other projects as their careers continue. As much as we might be willing to watch Robert Downey Jr. suit up and fight evil well into his 60s, as an actor, he will eventually want to leave the role. Maybe he'd be willing to revisit the role at some point. While there are plenty of heroes in the Marvel Universe, a US agent movie just isn't going to have the same impact as a Captain America movie. The solution may already be present. In the comics, the Reality Gem has the power to grant its user control over reality. One who possesses the stone can create entirely different realities. One theory suggests that the Reality Gem will be used at the end of Avengers 4 as a soft reboot of the universe, recasting longtime actors in the same iconic roles to prolong the life of the MCU. Captain America will die in Avengers: Infinity War. One of the big criticisms of the MCU so far has been an unwillingness to kill off any big players for real. Pepper Potts fake died, Nick Fury fake died, Loki fake died twice. What's up with that? Do they think we can't handle it? they might just be saving the big hero death for the big finale of the first 3 phases in Avengers Infinity War. Our first clue is in Tony's vision in Avengers Age of Ultron. He sees all the Avengers dead, but he specifically focuses on Cap, whose shield lies broken beside him. Later in the movie, Scarlet Witch gives Steve a vision of himself finally getting that dance with Peggy, who says, "The war's over, Steve. We can go home." Could this be Steve finally at peace? On top of all this, Chris Evans only has 1 movie left in his contract with Marvel, and there's been no discussion of renegotiation, unlike Robert Downey Jr., who just signed on for more. Kevin Feige has stated that they can't reveal the title of Avengers 4 because it will give away the ending of Infinity War. Could that suggest that the title might be Avengers Fallen Sun, the storyline that killed Cap in the comics?
Are you Tony's stank?
Stan Lee is Uatu the Watcher. One of the longest running theories in the MCU is about everyone's favorite cameo actor and creator of most of the heroes, Stan Lee. He's appeared in every MCU property to date and nearly every live-action Marvel production since the trial of the Incredible Hulk in 1989. Whether owned by Marvel Studios or not, even casual fans who don't know that Marvel and DC are different universes have noticed the same guy popping up in so many superhero films over the years. So is there an in-universe reason for the same face popping up around every superhero in multiple universes? One theory suggests that Stan Lee plays a single character in each of these appearances, Uatu the Watcher. In the comics, the Watcher is an extraterrestrial being assigned to observe Earth and its solar system. Uatu also has the ability to peer into other alternate realities, exploring what-if continuities. This would explain why Lee has shown up in Marvel films owned by different studios, always as a bystander around superhero happenings. Even if it turns out not to be true, it's a fun headcanon for Marvel fans to cling to. So fun, in fact, that Kevin Feige recently admitted that Stan Lee's cameos in Guardians of the Galaxy and its sequel are a nod to it.
You have made me very desperate. You might not be glad that you did.
Nick Fury is secretly a clairvoyant. Nick Fury seems to always have plans within plans, and backup plans for his backup plans. Is he just the world's greatest tactical strategist, or is he hiding a superpower of his own? One theory suggests that Nick Fury has the gift of precognition. Let's look at the facts. He puts together a team of superheroes right before aliens invade New York. He has secret underground bunkers in case of attacks. He has a program to bring people back from the dead conveniently before his favorite agent is killed. He even has secret helicarriers built. Now that's a lot of government funding that's going to seemingly ludicrous things. It's not just insanely good preparation though. In Avengers Age of Ultron, Fury shows up at Hawkeye's farmhouse mere hours after the Avengers, when only Barton knew where he was flying. He also seems to know everything about the situation with Ultron, despite the fact that he hasn't been with S.H.I.E.L.D. for quite a while at this point. Speaking of faking his own death, he had that highly unlikely scenario prepared pretty much right on the spot when he needed to go into hiding in Captain America, the Winter Soldier.
You are the Black Sky.
The Hand is creating vampires. In Season 1 of Daredevil, Stick is sent to eliminate the Black Sky. Black Sky is known as the Bringer of Shadows, the kind of weapon you don't want in your world. But when they get there, it's just a child. How can a child be such a dangerous weapon? In Season 2, the Hand tells Elektra that she's the Black Sky, but despite being this incredible weapon, she's killed pretty easily in the next episode, suggesting the Black Sky is more than just a human who wants to kill. It's meant to be the progenitor of an army of vampires. In both Daredevil and Iron Fist, the Hand is draining people of blood, which as far as we can tell is used to resurrect people from the dead in a ceremonial sarcophagus. Another telling factor is that Stick specifically decides to train Matt because he is blind. Who would have an advantage against creatures that hunt in the night? People who don't rely on the light. To top it all off, Black Sky is an obvious allusion to nighttime when vampires hunt, and the Hand is trained to hide their heartbeats, which makes sense if they're dealing with creatures who thirst for blood.
You are failing!
The Red Skull is still alive. In the comics, the Red Skull is one of the best Marvel villains of all time, so when he met his apparent end in Captain America: The First Avenger, fans were understandably disappointed. Not every Marvel villain is a winner, so why kill off one of your heaviest hitters in his first film? Now, that's just silly. That is, unless they didn't really kill him off. The last time we see Red Skull, he's holding the Tesseract as it seemingly dissolves him, sending a bright blue beam into the sky, opening a portal and sucking him up with it. We know it's a portal and not just an energy beam, because there's no hole in the top of the plane when the beam fades. Why spend money on a CGI energy beam shooting up into the sky instead of just having Red Skull explode? In the first scene of the Avengers, the Tesseract is described as a doorway, and at the end, it even teleports Thor and Loki back to Asgard. Some theorists even go as far as to suggest Red Skull is lending out the resources of Hydra to Thanos so they can take over Earth together.